I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I am Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where we are just kind of taking a tour of the Marvel Universe. We're in the middle of our first editions. How you doing, Gary?
Doing all right. It's Ladies Month.
It's Ladies Month.
We missed Women's History Month. But it is Ladies Month.
Yes. And we're talking about the women of the X-Men. So we've kind of been just randomly picking people to see their first issues. And this batch we're going to be doing X-23, Rogue, Mystique, and Emma Frost. And
Kitty Pryde.
And Kitty Pryde just happened to be. We didn't plan on that, but it worked.
Yeah, we're doing a little goofy thing. So we're covering those things, and then we wanted to talk about the first appearance of Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde. And X-Men historians like ourselves will know that is the beginning of the Phoenix Saga. So we're gonna transition and talk about the Phoenix Saga.
Yeah.
Then might go back to first appearances after that. But
yeah.
Phoenix Saga is real good, and it's been a minute since I've read it, and it's obviously an important story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
and the stuff like I don't know why I was shocked that this Uncanny issue that introduces Emma and Kitty Pryde was good. Like it's the best X-Men stuff. Like people talk about it like because it's so good.
It's classic. It's also real funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's the line. I also think the Avengers annual that we're doing is pretty good.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Like this is a pretty good batch. This first issue we're talking about, NYX, is really of its time. And Miss Marvel is a little bit goofy,
which is fine for 1978.
100%.
But let's focus on the first appearance of X-23 in a comic that I've always called NYX, that you just called NYX, and now I am feeling confused.
It is called NYX.
Okay.
It is about a bunch of young mutants in New York. This was a weird mid-2000s thing done by the editor-in-chief of Marvel, Joe Quesada. Did this limited series with Jade Middleton. Really striking art. And this was famous at the time for coming out really late. It was like the first issue came out, and then the second issue was delayed, and the third issue was delayed even more, and the fourth issue, and this whole series ended up taking it's a 6-issue series that ended up taking a few years to come out.
Wow. It's like that Wolverine versus Hulk series that just went away, just disappeared for like a year.
Yeah. It was huge in the mid-2000s. This was a huge problem.
Yeah.
These kind of delays. And the idea here was, it's kind of a bummer because the idea was they were trying to hey, let's introduce some new mutants and let's do them through this kind of mature label that we have. Like, let's do this as kind of an adult, more edgy thing. The idea being all these characters would eventually become part of it. But really only X-23 kind of survived. She's real different than she ends up.
Oh yeah, definitely. I read the first 2 issues of this today because I had read this, I remember picking this up when it was coming out, thinking oh, this is going to be cool, and I was curious what a revisit would be, and Gary, this feels very corny now. Like this definitely feels like old white guy trying to write teenagers, and it's not super great.
It's pretty dated. I've never liked Joe Quesada's writing.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I am indebted to that guy because he's responsible for one of my favorite eras of Marvel. Like he's the guy who was let's shake it up and get Grant Morrison in and Pete Milligan in, and let's be weird in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Love it. His writing is real. It's not as bad as it could be. Usually when an editor comes down and writes, it's real groany. And there are some Bill Jamis comics that are absolutely blood chilling. Just absolutely horrible comics that came around here. The other, or Bill Jamis, the other editor guy in charge of Marvel. This is just edgelordy and dated.
Yes. It is very much that. It's also a lot of slang speak that doesn't work at all.
I just the recurring nightmare where somebody puts a gun to my head and says, "Gary, write a pimp."
Yeah, dude, can you fucking imagine?
I want to fucking write a pimp.
And I feel like there's a certain there's a thing that writers do, maybe this is a comic book thing, but I kind of feel like I'd see this in TV too, where like they're just real excited to write pimps. Like they want to just like, this is my time to shine. I'm gonna call him Zebra Daddy. Like, what? Yeah.
It's a kind of thing like I know pimps still exist. Like, they're horrible. The time I did jury duty, it was a pimp.
Okay.
Was the guy who we were trying to get, who certainly did the crimes, but still ended up walking free. But they don't act like they do in movies. This has a real this is what I've seen from movies.
Yes.
Like movie pimps.
Absolutely.
And it's in 2003 was when this came out. So it's not like it's modern, but it's old enough to know better.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agreed. Like, I mean, it just the whole thing just feels, I mean, dated is probably the best word for it. Like, it feels like it would have felt dated in 2003, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. It's like this dude is trying to channel like David Simon, right? Like, he watched the one episode of The Wire and was like, I can do this. I can capture the streets.
It's real gritty. At the time this came out, people really liked it. I remember this getting lots of buzz. Mm-hmm. Part of that is probably the art. How did Jade Milton land for you? This was a real big name back in the day who I haven't heard about for quite a while.
Yeah, I think the art is good. It's they're definitely going for like they want to make everybody kind of sexy and sultry, it seems like, or at least like the main characters, like these teen girls. And I don't know, like we've talked a lot about being horny on this podcast and how you and I don't necessarily need to be horny while anything else is happening. Like, we kind of just zone in on we have horniness zones that we go into, and I don't mind. Like,
horniness is for sex.
Horniness is for sex. Yeah. Exactly.
It's not for podcasting.
It's not for podcast. Stay off the internet if you're horny. And obviously there's room for, sexual stuff and all of that stuff. Like, you guys know all of the caveats that I'm probably trying to come up with. But I don't know, like, something about, again, it always comes down to me, like, with how young the women are that they're displaying like this, and how even if a 17-year-old girl was dressed in provocative clothing, I find that less creepy than people drawing 17-year-old girls dressed in provocative clothing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
there's an authorial intent.
Yeah.
To it. Like, if a 17-year-old is dressed very provocatively, is walking down the street, I'm not saying this is a brag or anything. My ding dong does not turn on. Mm-hmm. My brain says that's too young, and it interrupts the flow.
Yeah.
Somebody draws a teenager prostitute real sexy, they're making a choice.
Mm-hmm.
There's an adult dude, and it's so hard to not just feel like they're perving out on it. And it's always rubbed me really the wrong way. Like, I think it's why people yell at me and say I'm sex negative and stuff, but it's really like generally youth stuff. I just get creeped out by sexualizing youths or really young presenting people. It grosses me out.
That's that's kind of like the vibe on some of the drawing. Like, even if it's not specifically that, it just definitely kind of feels like that from time to time. And I guess let's get into the comic, because the comic will reveal a lot about this. This is issue number 3. We've spent 2 issues tracing Kadane, who is the main character. I think that's how you start, or Kinnaid.
Kinnaid.
Kaiden. Jesus Christ. We were both wrong.
Yeah, never mind. I wasn't looking at it at the time. I just knew one of those was a name and wasn't.
Kadane, Kinnaid. I mean, anything could be a name in X-Men, Gary. That's the rule.
That's true. Their mutant power is hard to pronounce.
So she lost her father at a very young age, which hasn't really developed into anything more than she's kind of just adrift in high school. Like, she's doing drugs, she's staying out all night, not being a responsible teenager. And she has developed the power to stop time, basically. And she doesn't know anything about it, so we don't really know anything about it. She's kind of coming to terms with all of this stuff for the first time. This happens when she gets in an altercation with Hector, the local bully, who brings a gun to school and tries to shoot her, ends up shooting the teacher because she stops time and steps out of the path of the bullet, which triggers her leaving. She disappears for 6 months. So that sets us up, and that's going to be the plot of part 3.
The way that she stops time, like I read this when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
The way she stops time is real cool because relativity still exists. Like she stops time, but if she touches something, she like hits it with really immense force, which is the way that stopping time would really work. Like if you're moving, your relative speed is infinite to something that's stopped. You know, so she breaks this guy's arm. I always thought that was cool. That's the end of the first issue. It's a cool hook.
Yeah.
And then I want to just real quick for people who don't read any of these comics, and like honestly, you don't read NYX in 2022. But this art, the Jade Middleton stuff, I am always really attracted to art that doesn't do gradients.
Yeah.
Like flat colors, it's very similar to the Mike Allred stuff in that respect only, even though it's entirely different in style.
Mm-hmm.
But they both have this like flat coloration. He uses a lot softer colors in this, but that kind of flat texture stuff always looks awesome to me. Yeah. It's like my favorite thing. This guy, there's a guy named died something like Fish. I can't remember his name right now. I think his last name is Fish, actually. But there's another artist who's like that, Mike Allred. That stuff, I love it. It's some of my favorite. So I wish he was drawing cooler stuff. I wish he was drawing superheroes and stuff instead of like naked teens.
Yeah. Which is what we're going to start out with X-23 just kind of staring out the window listlessly, which is kind of her whole vibe in this comic book, while she's at the tail end of a job. So she just got through, servicing this dude who is congratulating her and saying that, she has those special skills, and we see that his back is all scratched up, so he likes the pain, Gary. And that's our mature content.
Well, and he says, you're the best at what you do.
Yeah.
So obviously a callback to Wolverine that was in the marketing of all this and stuff. Mm-hmm. The idea of enjoying your back being clawed with literal adamantium is real fucked up. Like,
dude, it takes all kinds.
It's real Hellraiser shit. Yeah. It's just like those. It's disappointing those Cenobites. Like, you have immense pleasures for you, and the pleasure is always getting a fish hook through your dick. I'm like,
Can you imagine the Cenobites like in the real world? Just like I summon them, and they're like, "Oh, you just normal sex, huh? You don't have a. There's nothing. There's not a.
Oh, and then you want to be held?
Okay.
This can be arranged,
and you want to. And you would like to. I'm not familiar with cuddle. Hey, razor wire. What's cuddle? Do you know what a cuddle is? I don't know any of the Cenobites names.
We will give you ultimate pleasure. Oh, that's great. I'd like to take a nap, and then I'm going to play video games and not worry about stuff, and then get takeout. It can be arranged.
It should be arranged.
Yeah. But yeah, there's some claw action going on. Mm-hmm. We cut over to our main plot with Kaiden. Kaiden?
Kaiden.
Yes. Kaiden. Kaiden's there with her teacher. She had just her dream dad corpse told her to go to where her teacher is. She has dreams, like premonition dreams. Mm-hmm. And her teacher was in a bathtub full of her own blood.
Yeah.
So suicide coded. Is there more to it? I didn't reread the first 2 issues.
I mean, that's really about it. Like the teacher is the one that got shot. And it's been 6 months. And the teacher's life has just gone to hell because she got shot by a student. Like her husband left her. She hasn't gone back to work. It's really weird. Like, and you can see like they're holding the picture of like
about that.
The ripped out like wedding picture or whatever. And I'm just like, why did he leave her? Like, why did we not
when
know
I
this?
married you, you promised you wouldn't get shot by a student.
It's the ultimate form of cheating.
You're cheating on me with a bullet.
It was such an abrupt turn to 6 months later too. Like it was a 1-page turn, and it's like, it's been 6 months, teacher, and she's like, I don't want to go back. I can't go back.
What a dick.
So yeah, Kaiden jumps out.
She's not like disabled or anything. It's not like she's like paralyzed.
No, not at all. I mean,
or what have you.
They show her with a cane because she got like shot in the stomach. So like obviously some mobility issues, but yeah, not. I don't know, man. Like the husband just left her. It's fucking hilarious.
She spends like 70% of this issue having breakfast later.
Yeah.
I don't. It's very funny. I forgot about that. Kaiden is getting questioned by the police as they're taking away her teacher.
we do. She doesn't really have any good answers as to why she's here, but she does ask to ride to the hospital in the ambulance with her. She wants to stick around. And then we jump back over for our page to X-23, who is walking home in the rain when her pimp picks her up. And the pimp is
lizard-like pimp.
Yeah,
this albinaric.
It's like somebody watched that pimp documentary that and was like, okay, I can make a comic book. I am fully educated as to this material that I'm writing.
Zebra upholstery.
Zebra upholstery. He does call himself Zebra Daddy, Gary. That's the takeaway for X-23 for me. Just imagine a dude who's just really into zebras. Like,
gotta hand it to Zebra Daddy, whether you like it or not.
We jump back over to Kadane, or excuse me. Oh fuck! Now I've got it all fucked up in my head. Kaiden. Jesus Christ! What is wrong with us today? We've infected one another. They're at the hospital, and the teacher wakes up finally, and is kind of out of it. But there's not like a lot to that. The teacher just wakes up and it's like, oh hey, and then we jump back to X-23 for a little while.
Yeah, this is the early 2000s. Comics need to be very slow. There was a movement called decompression, and we talked about that before. This is 2 pages of her just waiting in a waiting room. Silent pages that we don't really get. We know that everyone's upset, but we could have guessed that. This doesn't do a whole lot. This is kind of what comics did at the time, and it's going to be real kind of whiplashy as we read the other comics that we're doing in this session, which are all from eras in which density was really, valued.
Yeah, that Avengers annual is 40 pages, and there is probably a book's worth of text in it. Like, it is nuts.
Yeah. And it's all comes in, and they preview everything in the cover. I love the cover to that comic.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
There.
We go over to the Pimp Club in the Flatiron District with Zebra Daddy, and Zebra Daddy is talking to X-23 about how she keeps the weirdos happy and makes him happy because he says a bunch of pimp stuff.
Yes. And he snorts a line. That's important. So
yeah, he snorts a whole lot of coke. There are naked women everywhere. It's real pimpy.
It's mature, Gary.
Mature content. It is mature content.
It is mature.
We should have warned people who are listening. It's extremely adult.
It's very adult content. And a fully
Zebra
clothed
Daddy's going to talk about getting a home loan.
Yes.
Very, very adult.
Zebra Daddy schedules an appointment with H&R Block. It's tax season. We got to get this done. He gets a phone call, and it's from a dude who wants to use his services. So he tells Jade, another woman in his employ, that she's got to go work for this dude. And when she protests and says, that's the dude that put me in the hospital, he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then he beats her ass. Because, hey, mature content, Gary. This is adult mature stuff that we're dealing with here.
Pimp content. He also finds out that X-23 has been cutting herself. And that's very upsetting. Like, hey, you can't work if you have these cuts. You're my property. Like, just a lot of things that Joe Quesada heard pimps say in movies and TV.
Yep. We jump over to I'm gonna get it right
Soup
this time.
Fest.
I'm gonna get it right this time. The teacher and her student.
You need a hand, buddy?
When I say it in my head, like my brain is like, that's wrong. You got to reverse it, and I'm like, no. I think I think you're wrong, brain. Mouth is right, brain wrong. But the brain control mouth, so I don't get anything out at all. It's very confusing. It's a confusing
brain
time.
Do control mouth though. It do be like that.
It does be like that in this bitch of a world. Kadane.
Nope.
Fuck. So glad we only doing one of these. Kaiden. Jesus. Kaiden. There's no A in the word, Jeremy. What am I doing? I just want to put so many A's in it.
Kadane are the mercenary guys from Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Who are on horseback.
I love them.
Kaiden. Think riding with Kaiden. Or like Joe Kaiden. Biden and Kaiden, a winning combination. Finally, NYX and the nonagenarian president together.
Yeah, there you go.
That's how to remind.
They're at breakfast, and so obviously some time has passed because they're just eating a normal breakfast, or I guess soup.
They're actually having soup. I thought it was breakfast because it's in a bowl, but it's a soup.
Yeah.
Time.
and the teacher wants to talk about like, hey, you've been gone for 6 months. We should talk about all this stuff. And you found me, suiciding basically. So I did that. And she doesn't want to hear about any of this stuff. She's like, yeah, I'm actually here to tell you that I'm a mutant. And the teacher just laughs in her face about it. Which
this teacher is awful. Like I was on her side when she got left, but now I think maybe the husband had a point.
Yeah. I mean, if she's just laughing, like you live in a world with mutants. Like, why would you laugh at this when a teenager would come to you and be like, oh, I'm developing mutant powers? Like, I feel like in the 616 universe, like teachers get special training on how to deal with mutant powers, right? Like, in the real world, we just put cops in classrooms, but in the 616 world, they put like they put Cyclops in classrooms.
There's a sentinel there, yeah, something like that. She would know. This is ridiculous, and she keeps insisting. Like, this scene makes no sense. This is bad writing. She's like, "Oh, you're just making up a story," and she's like, "No, you got shot because of me." And she's like, "Don't you ever joke about that?" And I'm like, she doesn't seem like she's a laugh a minute.
Yeah. Why?
Like, what a fun joke to show up when you've killed yourself, ride back with you from the hospital, live with you for a few days, and then give you this gut buster.
Yeah, like,
how could this even be a joke?
Really I mean, like, why does she think that the kid is lying? Like, why wouldn't you just take this on face value? The big thing that happens is that fuck, I forgot it again. What is Kaiden?
Yeah, okay.
The big thing is that Kaiden is trying to tell her, like, hey, the reason you got shot and that your husband left you is because it's my fault. And the teacher doesn't believe it at all.
Yeah. And you can, like, what they're going for is like, oh, you're just being hard on yourself because you're a teen. Not everything's your fault and stuff. But they don't sell it.
What is the blocking here, by the way? Like, does the teacher get so upset that Kaiden is telling her these things that she goes to her room and slam the door, or is she kicking the child out? Like, I'm not sure. Like, because then she just opens the door and, like, I guess she points at a phone, and so maybe she's just going into her bedroom because she's real mad. Yeah, the child.
She's so mad that she goes to the bedroom of her own house.
When is the last time you got so mad you had to leave the room?
Oh man, that's very rare. I get mad enough that I have to leave the computer.
Well, yeah.
I'm in my office and I'm like, oh God, fuck, and then just like we'll go be in a different room.
Mm-hmm. It's been a while since I've been that angry at a person. The teacher threatens to
grow up. Yeah, not a big deal.
The teacher threatens to call child services if Kaiden doesn't. I don't know. I mean, I was going to laugh every time I say it right. Unless Kaiden goes to like talk to her mom because hey, she's been missing for 6 months and she's a teenager.
Yeah. So that part's fair. Like, your mom's probably worried about you. We cut over to X-23. It's just her being out of it until the John comes back, and the John says, "Hey, I want to change things a little bit tonight. You don't mind, do you, baby?" And pulls out a knife. The idea is that he wants to cut X-23 is my guess, or just like, hey, use this knife instead of your hand knives. I don't know.
But use the special knife. But I think it's threatening. I think he wants to cut on her. Is the goal. Meanwhile, Kaiden is having a dream again. Her corpse dad is telling her to go to the hotel room that X-23 is in. So she wakes up,
she cut her hair here.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
There's like the opening frame is some scissors with some hair around it, but she doesn't seem to have a different haircut, and I don't get it.
I didn't understand it either. I didn't know what was going on. So I like that this woman, this teenager who just woke up from a bad dream about her dead dad, like, goes through every single piece of paper on this. Like, what is on this coffee table? There's just millions of things. I don't have this much stuff on my coffee table. It's very weird to me.
How long has it been since you've been to like a fast casual restaurant, like a Ruby Tuesdays or a TGI Fridays or something?
Probably not long. Like, I like going to taking customers to lunch and stuff. That's usually where we do something like that. So that's probably an often, like, not those specific two. Like, there's like local chains that we go to, like Walk-Ons. It's kind of like a sports bar, kind of in the same vibe. So like in the last few months.
Gotcha. The way that this desk, it reminds me of those menus, which is always one of my favorite things. is how there'll always be like a middle splash page where everything is exploding.
Yeah.
Like they'll show their like new peach bellinis or whatever, and it's somebody threw two of them at each other, like two fastball pitchers. Took two of these drinks and threw them at each other.
I'm really surprised that they just didn't lean all. Like I'm surprised Chili doesn't have a pop out menu at this point. Like that seems, and maybe they do. I haven't been to a Chili's in a long time.
The waiter just comes and jingles some keys.
Yeah.
You know.
Actually, I ate Chili's at the airport when I was coming. I ate breakfast at a Chili's in an airport the last time, just recently coming back from Chicago, and it was miserable. It was incredibly miserable. I don't know why I did that to myself. It was bad, man. So yeah, she writes down Hotel Brazil.
Yeah, zombie dad.
Yeah,
tells her where to go.
The teacher wakes up, sees this handwritten note, and is like, "I'm going to go to there. I have to chase the child."
Yep. She goes there. It's the seedy hotel, obviously, where X-23 is, and gets in and comes in the room where the John is dead and full of blood. Teacher comes up right after her, weirdly in her pajamas.
Yeah, it doesn't change clothes.
Like her robe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There. And they both come upon X-23, who's in the bed, has her two claws out, is really scantily clad, bra strap on the shoulder. Titty's hanging out, and she finally says her first word. She says hi.
Yeah.
The implication she killed the John and then got caught.
I mean, it's not implied. He's dead on the floor on the page.
Yeah. She killed the John and she got caught, basically, at this point.
And yeah, she's got the two claws like Wolverine has three.
Yeah. This is, I always forget because they've done so much with X-23's character that she started off like this. As like a Joss Whedon damaged girl, former prostitute and stuff. Like she talks about in modern appearances, she talks about being experimented on and being used and stuff like that. But she's always referring to like the science stuff. The same thing Wolverine is. She's not referring to being a prostitute, like a sex worker. In this, it's a
really like
weird.
I would imagine like when that Logan movie came out, that people had a lot of interest in X-23 after that because that was such a really like great portrayal of the character. And like, can you imagine like, oh, I'm going to go read this series.
Yes.
This is not what I was looking for. This was the bad content. And there's nothing like,
it sucks. It's sad. Imagine being like a little girl, like seeing Logan and being like, that's fucking badass.
Imagine being an 11-year-old seeing an R-rated movie full of blood.
Yeah. or you're like a teenager.
No, I know what you meant. Yeah.
But she's like, oh, that's awesome. Like this character's real badass because Laura comes off great in that movie, and then getting this, and it's like she's just a silent sex waif, who cuts herself, and it's just so full of these gross cliches. Pretty bad.
Yeah,
pretty crappy.
And like, there's a reason for her to be scantily clad and the fishnet stockings and everything in this, right? Like the story, there's a justification for her doing this. It still feels just a little like we're enjoying coloring this. Like you were enjoying this. It's a little bit too much. And I can't get like throughout the first two issues were bad about this as well. But this one specifically with the strip club and with X-23, you just, I don't know, man. Like she's
arching her fucking back.
Yeah.
Like she's not like, she doesn't look traumatized.
Yeah.
It's like this real gross combination of like danger fuck that certain old men get into, where something is kind of bloody and violent, but then it's also real sexy. And that combination has never done too much for me. And it's not like I understand BDSM, understand and appreciate to a degree. But this kind of like extreme, what if a bunch of blood, but also a traumatized person who's sad, who's also really naked and is also a kid.
Yeah.
Is just gross. I do not like it.
Yeah. It's not the best. I'm actually I feel like I don't remember how long this series is. You said it was 6 issues. Like I feel like I'll probably
it's 6.
Finish this for some reason. I don't know why. I feel like I have to know what happens next to X-23 when there's probably a zillion X-23 comic books I could just go out and read. So
it's hard to stop reading a storyline.
Yeah.
Right. Like I get it. Yeah. Out of the things we cover this week, or we're covering this session, this is my least favorite. which is weird because this Miss Marvel, it's goofy and old timey and very dated.
Yeah.
This somehow feels it's like dated in a bad way.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. How does it feel worse than it's something from the 1970s? Yeah.
Like it's not even that it's part of it is that it's a different kind and grosser kind of sexist.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Miss Marvel issue has women love to talk about their costumes and be vain.
Oh yeah.
Even when they're even when they're scared of dying. It's also sexist. It's just like a less gross kind of sexist. It's quaint, more quaint. If this is the last batch of episodes that's going to come out as individual episodes, the people have spoken. We're doing chunks. So if you're hearing this on the Patreon, you're getting the chunk. If you're hearing this individually, prepare for the chunk.
And that'll do it for this episode, Gary. So if you want to support the show, patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv is the place to do so. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever else you might find it. Just do that. Give us 5 stars. Make the robots like us, because the robots only deal in star currency, so we have to have 5 stars. Yeah. Do all of that stuff. We'll be back
things to spend
in a couple of days with Miss Marvel.